Hey there. Welcome back to another episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, the podcast where we talk about how to make massive income, not just passive income. And what that really means is we're talking about being a business owner, talking about how to run an actual business that makes income and not just passive income like everybody else that got into real estate several years ago said, including myself, I just want enough income. I don't have to work ever again. Reality, we all figured out that that was a myth. So you need to learn how to be an entrepreneur because at the base of it all, there's two types of people that get into real estate. One is a lazy person that just doesn't want to work and they want to get enough income to cover their expenses so they can kind of do whatever they want, work at will. The other one, which I like to think most of you are that are listening to the show, are people that want to be an entrepreneur. And real estate was that like easy entryway into this business or into entrepreneurship. Not the easiest business, but it's an easy way, a low skill way, so to speak, low barrier to entry. And then we all find out it's actually pretty difficult. And that's hopefully why you're listening to this podcast, minus a little bit of entertainment that we might share with you. Speaking about making massive income, I got a super good deal that I want to break down with you guys. Land, for a bit, the last month, I felt like we've been like doing trailers. Like I was a trailer boy through and through for the last month. I swear every deal I was trying to sell was a mobile home or a piece of land tied to a mobile home or just something. Mobile homes and parks. In fact, we have one listed right now, a mobile home in a park, which we don't do very often, but it was such a good deal. Super clean. It's a wholesale deal. But back to my point here, land. Right now I have copious amounts of land deals, some good, some bad, some amazing. One we've been working for a little while that I want to talk about is a lot here in the city of Spokane. And I want to talk about it because it actually kind of dovetails into another deal that's a little bit more complicated, but nonetheless, they're both really good opportunities. And with that, I realized there's actually kind of a little bit of due diligence that needs to go into these things if you're going to be educated on land. Because one thing we have in America is a glut of land. There's land everywhere, right? And so some of it is going to be worth more than others. For example, a land per square foot wise in the middle of a city in a growing population is going to be more valuable than 10 acres, 20 miles from the city center, assuming that it's just there's land everywhere around your 10 acres, right? And then you'll go to another side of town where they've got 10 acres that's worth a ton of money. And it's just there's just location does matter, especially when it comes to land, location certainly applies. But as I've been underwriting these deals, so I've been working with our investor buyers, I just thought it would be a great time to talk about this stuff. And I know there's a lot of folks in the scale community that on our weekly coaching calls, they bring up what different land deals all the time. And I just want to share at least a little piece of what I know that I hope will help you guys really quickly analyze deals. Because if you're like us and you're doing enough marketing, you will get a lot of land deals that honestly are garbage, or even rural properties that have a house on it. Sometimes they're just not good. I'm not saying they're always bad, and don't say that, but you need to be able to get to know fast on some of these deals so you don't spin your wheels or spend too much time on them. So anyhow, let's dive right into this one. It came into our CRM and it was interesting because it's in a trust. And the guy that wants to sell it, he's like, hey man, I don't benefit from the sale of this at all. The money goes to the state. There's a lien on it. And I don't know the whole story. Either way, he has no dog in the fight, but he's like, hey, make me an offer. If it gets approved, whatever, go ahead. So we start underwriting the deal. I look at it and immediately when I'm doing like just a high level, pass, I'm like, where's it at? This one happens to be in a pretty good zip code, in a part of Spokane that's very, very desirable. And it's a standard like infill lot that was platted like years ago. And there's an adjacent like national home builder, D.R. Horton, that had built a development in the area, like a 22 lot development. And the reason why, and this was, I guess, 2022. And then the reason why that this one was left out of that, it was platted, but left out is it was owned separately in this trust. And so it never got sold off with the rest of the land. There's not a ton of land here. But also in that part of this area is like the road ended and then there's a gravel road. So for anybody to ever like extend this, it's going to take a pretty good capital investment because you have to like do all new curb, sidewalk, pavement, all that stuff. Well, 2020, 21, 22, the market was going crazy. National home builders were basically buying anything that they could and just shoving these little 20, 30 unit lot developments up, at least in our town, wherever they could amongst all the other large developments they're also doing. So they had enough money. It made sense, at least back then. It felt like it did. Anyways, they extended the road. The cool thing is this lot was then part of this road extension and now has a sidewalk and everything to it. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying location is awesome. It has the road infrastructure to it, which just makes it like I could build the same house on this lot. I'm thinking about it from an investor standpoint. I could build the same house as D.R. Horton did, and it's going to sell for probably close to what they sold those things for. Now, that was a few years ago, but prices are going to still be in our market the way I'm looking at it. It's 3 years later. Prices have kind of gone up in a sense. Building costs maybe come down a little bit. So I'm thinking house next door of this lot literally sold for $500K. There's 21 other comps. And the one good thing about home builders, national home builders, is they tend to build the same freaking house over and over again. So you can look at square foot, bed, bath count. They're all pretty much the same quality, same finishes. We've got basically over that 2-year period, houses sold 470 to 500. So now I know as an investor builder, those are the comps for this land. I feel super good about it because they're right there and I could just build the same house. Anyways, okay. So now I'm like, okay, now price obviously comes into to play here, but we just got to figure out, is this a good deal or not? The next like levels of due diligence you really get into on land. The thing that I think trips people up the most is like the unknown costs of land development. So now if the land it's on a steep hillside or it's got tons of trees in it or it's on a big gigantic rock, all those come with different cost associated with getting a house on the lot. And really, it's don't overcomplicate this thing. Just step back and think about it from this perspective. Everything above the foundation, a builder can dial in. And I know this going through my own build experiences on new builds is like, I can get an exact quote on the framing of the house to the penny. I can get an exact quote on drywall because there's a plan that I have printed. I say, what's it going to take you to do this? And those guys know exactly what they're doing when they're quoting you. Now you'll get variations in quotes, but that person, that sub is going to do it for the price that they give you because they know everything going on. It's not like flipping a house where, they don't know that you got to jack up the house before you put new floors in, right? Like there's many, many less unknowns, but most all of the unknowns come in the land development, which is also why land development is the most speculative and the most risky in real estate. So once you get a concrete foundation in the ground, everything else is known. So to that end, you just need to look at what's it take to get a concrete foundation. And so that goes back to the question, is this a flat lot? Okay. If it's a flat lot, it's obviously going to be cheaper to excavate. If it's got almost no trees on it, if no trees, even better, you don't have to cut trees down. Is it on a giant rock? Because if it's on a giant rock, you can still build a house there, but you're going to pay excavator time. So you're going to have to go pay a guy with a big excavator and a rock hammer on that, like a jackhammer, to jackhammer below your frost line, which is we have that issue here in the northern climates. So 30 inches below your frost line plus the depth of your footings, which are like 8 to 10 inches. If you're just doing like a no basement slab on grade or crawl space type scenario. So you can also find that out by going and looking at the lot and be like, does it look like, do I see big giant rocks or rock outcroppings here where like you can't just dig with an excavator? If so, there's still going to be some unknowns there, but this is what your investor buyer is going to be thinking is like, okay, if it's $1,000 a day for a jackhammer or whatever it is, call your excavators around town. They'll tell you exactly what the hourly rate is for that stuff. And you can kind of estimate, hey, how much would it take to do this many feet of a foundation if you had to go all in rock? Call an excavator. They'll tell you. They'll be like, well, yeah, it'll probably take me a week of 8 to 10 hours a day, $1,000 a day, 10 grand just to get that excavated, not including backfilling or anything like that. So you can kind of like build the idea of that just quickly by doing that. The other thing when it comes to the ground is environmental. In some cases, in residential areas where you've already got a development going on, you probably don't need to do an environmental study. But there are some cases where you do like an environmental to see, or at least a test to see, like, was this ever considered like a dumping ground for anything? And you'll be very surprised. Like, so in Washington State, we had a volcano erupt back in the 80s, I think it was, maybe late 70s, Mount St. Helens. And that was 500 miles from Spokane, but it dumped feet of ash in Spokane as well. And so what the city did back then is they took all the ash, because it's not like snow, it doesn't melt. They piled it up on a lot or a big giant area kind of near where this lot I'm talking about is Spokane. Well, there's a developer here now building apartments on it, and he has to excavate all of that ash out, which now there's trees and stuff growing. It looks just like dirt, but it's not structurally stable. So they're actually having to excavate like feet, like 10, 15 feet in some areas of ash, take it off site, and then bring in new structural soil that can be packed and all that sort of stuff. That's a massive expense. And my guess is it took this long for that property to be valuable enough for people to want to take all the extra excavation costs. So now on this little city lot that I'm buying, that's 50 foot by 164 foot, we can take that on a micro scale. It's like, is there any reason from an environmental standpoint or a soil quality standpoint? And one of the ways you can know that is you can just look at the other houses around, and does it seem like it makes sense? You can talk to other builders and developers in the area if you know like who did the work. That's super helpful to get that like qualitative information from people. But it's generally pretty apparent. But in some cases, you can do an environmental study, pay $400 or $500, at least get some level to make sure it's not an old dumping ground. I don't know exactly what a soil test would cost in some areas, because it will depend on the type of, like the size of the lot and all that sort of stuff, but you can get a soil test. Like on this lot, I'm not going to. That would be like an extreme situation. If it's on a hillside, you're probably going to have to do some testing, because hillsides are super hard to build on and are susceptible to bit like water, like erosion, really bad water erosion, or just instability. And then you have to do like pile driving like 30 feet into the ground to have a stable foundation. So those are extreme examples. But they are things you should think about when you're doing your due diligence. And then the last piece on the due diligence for land that is important, that's underground, that's an unknown, is the utilities. The good thing about this is you can get a known cost. So for this lot, I saw in the road, I can turn on our city's GIS and saw water and sewer, but I noticed that there was no taps going into this lot. So I called the city development services department, and they're like, yes, there is nothing there. So you'll need to talk to engineering who designs this sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. Well, we have a connection fee associated with the utilities, which is awesome, because you would think that in a town that preaches that we have a affordable housing issue, that they wouldn't have huge connection fees for housing, but they do. And in some senses, it makes sense because someone's got to pay for this big giant sewer system, right? But anyways, it's like $7,000 or $8,000 just to get a permit to connect to that. Doesn't include cutting the asphalt and connecting to it, which we have to do. So then the next step is, okay, I know what I need to do. I know the water and sewers where I want it. If it's not there, then you may need to pay to extend it. And usually when you have to do that, if you have to extend the main line, it's usually, for what we're looking at, never worth it, unless you're talking about a big development that's going to be multiple units and all that sort of stuff. But anyways, going back to the connection fees, you're going to have some level of connection fees, and you're going to have to, you can go get an excavator and be like, hey, I need to extend it to the lot. Here it is. Show them a picture of where the water sewer's at. Oh yeah, if it's pretty standard. Yeah, I just got to run it this far. It's going to be this much. We're going to have, an asphalt cut. We're going to have to dig down this deep. Your local excavators, generally speaking, will know most of that sort of stuff that you need to know on that front, and they can just give you a pretty good quote. So you can kind of find out what your city costs are going to be for connection fees, and then what your excavation costs will be. So you can mark that as more of a known. The unknown part could still be the digging conditions, but again, most of the bigger excavators and contractors in your area are going to know. They're going to say, oh, that part of town, yeah, I've heard it's pretty rocky, or oh yeah, that's all sand over there. That'll be easy digging. They usually know. If they don't know, just talk to enough people that you'll find out. So now you've gone through that, and that's just what I did. And I said, okay, this is a great lot. However, we're going to have about, for us, I think it was going to be about $25,000 to get utilities to this lot. This lot probably retails, given that it has utility stubs in the lot where there's a water stub, electric stub. There's not going to be gas here, but if you have gas in your area that's needed, you have that. And then of course, sewer. 110,000. That's about retail value. So take that minus, we'll just say, 25 grand for the utility connections, because if it needs those, then it's just like doing a rehab on a house, right? What are the repair costs? This is the repair cost. So essentially we're at $85,000 is what I could pay today and have it at retail value. Well, I'm an investor, so I want to have some margin on the land. And if I'm going to sell it to somebody, which we're going to end up probably doing, we need to have some margin on that. We're going to have some selling costs and all that stuff. So either way, we negotiated it down to $36,000 so that we have the margin to actually sell this thing and make a profit down the road. And you're like probably thinking like 36,000 to 80, like that's a great deal. And it is, but there will be some other costs. Like we're going to close on this one, because of just the situation with the actual land ownership. What we like to do, it's in a trust. There's some legal issues going on with that sort of stuff. And we just want to make sure the deal goes through. So we'll have some capital costs. But the cool thing about that is because it is a cheap deal for us, right? We'll pay say $40,000 out of pocket for it. We can close on it and just list it. And so now we're not just looking at investor buyers. We're looking at people that are like, I want to build a house and I already have a builder and I just need the land. And this is in a pretty desirable area. So now maybe we could sell it to somebody that is a builder for 80,000, but there might be someone that just falls in love with the area, or their mom and dad live in the same neighborhood and they want to, the grandkids to be able to watch mom and dad's house. They'll pay maybe 90 or 100 for it. So there's a little bit more emotion tied to it and less of an investment tied to it. So there's some pluses and minuses to, having to close on a deal like this, but we're so confident in the location and the price we have it at, we feel really good. So this will be a great deal. I know I'm blabbering on here for one of our Friday episodes, but I want to wrap this up with the connection to this lot is the seller actually owns the lot next door. And it has a house on it, but the lot next door is it's like a full acre. So it's a really big lot, and the backyard of it fronts the road behind it, which is where the lot we're buying is fronting. So the one next door, they can do what's called a boundary line adjustment and basically draw a line on the back of their lot. And what that allows them to do is not get a full survey. They can the city gives them the ability to just draw a line and say from here over, that's a new lot. We'll give you a new parcel number. Well, they want to sell us that lot. And they think that lot is worth 2 lots, and they think it's going to be worth $200,000 because they know like retail value. Hey, it's $100,000 per lot. Retail is kind of where they're thinking. And they're saying that because the lot's not going to be as deep as the one next door. So in their mind, they're like, okay, it'll be a little bit worth a little bit less. And so for context, the lot next door is 50 feet wide, which is the standard frontage for a city lot where we're at. It's 164 feet deep, which is a little deeper. Usually it's like 120 feet. Is a standard city lot. Well, the one next door, they want to make it 80 foot deep and 100 feet wide. So their point is you could have 2 50 by 80 lots if you choose to subdivide it. Okay, so now we're looking at a totally different deal. Okay, so now we're looking at this deal, and we're saying, what can we do with these lots? They were saying 100,000 or 200,000 what they wanted. They thought that was still a good deal for us. And then we got them down to like 170,000 on price. I personally think it's still a little high, but we got to go through the same due diligence process. So on this one now, let's say we said $25,000 to get connected to utilities, and I'm estimating it's a little high for our market, but I'm just using that as a round number. So now if we want to do that to 2 lots, that's $50,000. And then we also have to split the lot, which I know this because I've done it before. It's going to cost us all in probably 12 to 15. So we're $65,000 into these 2 lots. That will maybe retail for 100,000 each, but likely a little less. And so when you do the math on this, it just doesn't quite make sense. And when I'm doing my due diligence on these lots, the last point I want to make here is what is the highest and best use for the lot? So the lot next door, I could technically put a duplex on it because in the city of Spokane, we can basically put any amount of units on any lot we want right now. But it's not a duplex area. It may not make sense. And then there's not a lot of people that I know buying duplexes, brand new builds that we're going to need to sell for $700,000. And it's only going to gross rent for like probably $400 to $4,300. So the highest and best use is probably for me to sell it or build something on it and make a profit as they build on it and have the massive income now. The lot next door, I'm going through it. I'm like, gosh, it's got a lot of frontage. Frontage is a big deal, but it's not deep enough. So if you actually look at how you have to build a house, and when you're working in city limits, especially, they're going to have setback requirements. So you don't get to build a house on a 50 foot by 80 foot lot that's 50 by 80. there is in the city of Spokane a setback of, I believe it's 25 feet from the back of the curb to the front of your garage. So you can't have any house the first 25 feet. So I'm at an 80-foot lot, right? So that now gives me, what is that? 20, what did I say? 25 minus 80, that puts me at 65 feet. And then I need a 15 foot setback from the backyard, meaning from the edge of the lot, the only structure that could be back there is got to be 15 feet away. So now I'm at a 50-foot house. Now I'm going to question myself. Am I doing the math right? Oh my gosh. So I said 80 foot deep minus 25. That's right. 55. I said 65. So now I'm at a 40-foot deep house and I have 5-foot side setbacks. So essentially my house can be 40 foot wide. So if you think about that, you're looking at a 1,600 square foot rancher that you could build, because you could do 40 foot wide by 40 foot deep. And from what I know, that's not a really, you're not getting the full 1,600 square feet out of that. Like a lot of the houses that you see being built are about 40 by 50, 40 by 60. So you're already going to be like, if you're trying to do like a ranch or a 2-story, you're already going to be kind of an odd shape. Builders don't love that. They want things that are easy, especially right now. We don't have a lot of spec builders just buying up lot land. Like in 2022, 23, I knew dudes that were just like putting it in their inventory. They had millions of dollars of infill lots in their inventory because they're like, I'm just going to build it as I can. Just the confidence isn't there right now from a spec build standpoint. So now you're already saying, okay, it's a little weird. So I went down the path of, well, we can do townhomes now. So what if I did 10 townhomes? Well, the parking's not there because there's no alley access. So that's not going to be easy to do. So I'm trying to find the highest and best use of this lot. And it could be that it just needs to be sold as a single lot that's going to have a really big side yard and a really narrow backyard to make up for it. And that's what the builders I'm talking to right now are looking at it. However, I have a couple other builders that like to do really cheap spec homes, and I think they would build on a 50-foot by 80-foot deep lot because they have really, really low build costs. They can shove something in there. It's just going to be a little awkward, but because their costs are so low, this is what they do. They're happy to take on something like this. At least that's what I'm speculating. So I do think we'll have to do some renegotiating with the seller on this price to get what we need out of it. But I just wanted to use that one as an example because not only is due diligence important, but doing like the highest and best use analysis. Because sometimes you might come across a lot, maybe it's a little rural. It'd be cool to have a custom home on it, but because of the area, the highest and best use might be to drag a mobile home on it, and you can make a lot of money really quick. If you can make $100,000 in 2 months or $150,000 in 15, 16 months, what do you want to do? You're probably going to go with the one that's in 2 months. So use that highest and best use and how it feeds into your business during that analysis. I will stop blabbing on because I think this episode is getting a little long for a Friday. If you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram at InvestorManDan. If you're lucky enough to have my cell phone number, you can always call or text me as well. And I'm happy to go into more detail. I know I got a little down the rabbit hole on some of these. But the key with these land deals is doing that due diligence up front, knowing where to go, and then looking at the highest and best use. And I guarantee you will feel much more confident when you see land coming to your CRM, when you know how to quickly analyze those. Once you figure out who those right people are to talk to at the city, at the county, whatever, the contractors, excavators, you will quickly build just like you did, I'm sure, with your ability to look at a flip deal and analyze the rehabs. It's just the same process. We're just talking about dirt instead of 2x4s. So have a great weekend. We will catch you guys all next week. So see ya.